Honorable Speaker, ma'am, just few moments ago, a worthy member of the proposition clearly highlighted about when we use social media, we can get most of the information faster than the news channels. Exactly that is the scenario we have seen. While the polls of the Bihar elections were going on, this where the Election Commission of India have only declared around 10 seats, and there was the social media who have already declared the winner of the Bihar election, and that is the moment we realize a very critical point that the social media, more than information, it has false and excessive information. A warm greetings, Honorable Speaker, ma'am, and this August gathering. For a certain cause today, I stand here strongly opposing the motion put forward by my fellow members of proposition. Honorable Speaker, ma'am, a worthy member of the proposition highlighted about there are huge amount or quantity of information which is given in the premises of social media. Even if we study, if we want to study, even if we want to have any sort of information, even if we want to know anything, we have enough information in social media. But that is a particular point. Because that is the level of saturation when we get the amount of information we have, then comparing it to the amount of actual and true information we have, it's completely different. And then when we move forward, and a worthy member of the proposition have clearly again and again highlighted about digital literacy. The IITs, IIMs, I'm sure we can name a few around the country. Now these institutions have tendered to be the islands of excellence floating on the sea of mediocrity. But the average Indian education system is not of the kind that you, I and the members of this house would look upon. And this brings to my eve of catechism called credibility. Credibility of information over social media have been very much limited. And that is a particular thing. Post-independence, when we had the IT Act in 2000, the section 66A of the IT Act was repealed. And that for particular reason, we have clearly seen the amount of misinformation under the freedom of speech have excessively increased. And for that particular reason, what is true, what is actually not true, is very difficult to highlight. Now, when we move on towards a very important factor, we can clearly understand that most of the creators who are over social media, they are not actually educators as the member of the proposition highlighting. They are influencers. And when we look into a very basic differentiation between the influencers and educators, we can clearly understand that most of the educators who are actually teaching over social media, those educators themselves need to make sure that they are completely equipped with the algorithm. And to being equipped with the algorithm, they now more than education, if we look into any of the social media platform, be it Physics Wala, be it or any YouTube video over YouTube, we'll clearly find out that most of the educators in this moment of time, they are trying more than teaching of subject, they are now focusing on having a quality time which will create an interaction between the students and the teachers. And for that particular reason, the education have been declined, and more of the time over the social media platform, we can clearly see it is jokes and improper information which have been given to the students. Now when we look in the entire motion properly, we can clearly highlight that it is about the social media. Now social media is not only limited to YouTube or Instagram. Now when we move into a core concept of social media, a very important concept we have to understand is algorithm. And that algorithm, as the member of proposition have clearly highlighted, it focuses on us, it's actually not focused on us. While we open any particular social media platform, the moment we move, for an example, we move towards the Instagram, we can clearly say there will be a feed. Now there will be multiple sections which we can click on. The moment we click on, and there is a huge amount of dopamine which have been hit. I believe that social media can actually be compared to a cigarette. Similarly, a cigarette provides nicotine which hits our dopamine levels, and for that particular reasons we are addicted to cigarettes. Similarly, these social media platforms raises our dopamine in the form of the digital dopamine. For that particular reason, we get quite addicted to social media, and for that particular reason, we can clearly see the amount of time we actually spend in social media is much more higher than we actually spend it in quality educational time. And for that particular reason, this is not the intellectual development which have been produced by social media, but rather a dopamine level which have been hit. And when we talk about the entire motion, a very important core concept, the entire motion is about the youth. But actually, who are the youth in the Republic of India? Is the youth about the Gen Z generation? Is the youth the meta generation which have been recently have started from 2025? The member of proposition have clearly failed in answering. But the member of the proposition have clearly again and again highlighted about the amount of benefits which we have. But we at moment of time, we are talking about the intellectual development, and there is a very basic and thin line between intellectual development and the one which we get from social media platforms, which is just dopamine hits. And even after all this statement is still, the members of the proposition are quite adamant to their statements. It quite reminds me of a very beautiful quote by Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking mentioned, and I quote, "The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge." So with this, I rest my case. But definitely, not my cause. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, ma'am. Thank you, August Cadet.